After Michigan just destroyed Michigan State players just beat the crap out of a couple Michigan players. If you see this one in slow motion, you see one of the Michigan State players just beating this guy up with his helmet. In criminal law, we like to call that assault with a deadly weapon, okay? Now, the way the law works is that during a football game or any other sort of sport, if it's a violent kind of rough sport, the law gives a lot of leeway for fighting because in theory it's kind of like part of the show and everyone consents to it. This one is way after the game and it wasn't, in any way part of the game. So I think the leeway is kind of a lot less there. However, there's still some leeway because it's still in the sports world. They're still wearing their uniforms and whatnot. So there's three levels here to think about. There's a criminal liability, then the middle ground is civil liability, and then the lowest ground is no liability. Because this happened all long after the game, I think there will be at the very least civil liability, meaning that the Michigan players can file a lawsuit or settle for some good amount of money for getting beat up long after the game. I don't think it will rise to criminal liability because it's still in the stadium. They're still wearing their uniforms. And like I said, the law gives a lot of leeway for fighting in sports, like a lot of leeway. So I think that it wouldn't be criminally punishable. If the state of Michigan does try to go after a couple of these players, they'll either lose in a criminal case or the players will just settle for something just so they don't have to bother with prosecutors and whatnot. In terms of civil liability, I think the University of Michigan itself has liability here to the players. Why in the world is the University of Michigan football stadium, it holds like 100,000 people, why do they have one little tunnel where both teams have to go through to get to the locker rooms? And then why in the planet would they have the teams going through the tiny tunnel at the same time after a very contentious game where Michigan State just got the living snot beat out of them on the field? And obviously the security guards are a flippin' joke. If you look over here, they're just sitting on the sideline here, right? And then the security guards have a thing called SAFE. That's the company they work for probably, and they're hired to do security. Of course they're safe because they're not getting involved. They're not trying to do anything to stop the fight. Hitting the other guy with the helmet, that's a close call. I think that one, it's a close call, but I think in the end, because it's still, they're wearing their sports uniforms, they're in the locker room area, it's right after the game, I think it can kind of go toward that, leeway afforded to athletes. My friend Tiny is a big Michigan fan, and he wants to see everyone on the Michigan State football team go to prison for this. Sorry, Tiny, that's not gonna happen.